Hello fellow Elunes, Josh first at it again, bringing you some more Elune, and today we're going to be discussing a little topic about boss battles and when to use burning mode and when you should probably try to avoid it. Now, a lot of you know that the burning mode was a new thing that they added recently to the game. That was a nice quality of life. It also gave you an additional 100% drop rate by consuming 3 fights worth of stamina for whatever stage you choose to fight the boss on. So it's very nice. I mean, you know, what's the downside? You're thinking like, wow, you get to save a lot of time by only having to fight the boss once. You get 3 clears worth of drops, plus you get an additional 100% drop rate. So what is the downside? Well, the downside is actually pretty hefty. It's very high risk, maybe not so much high reward. So we're going to be talking about that and breaking that down. Maybe burning mode really is not something that you would want to consider doing on a daily basis, at least not yet. So if we go down here to a boss that I usually just don't, I don't fight very often. That's why I'm only on like stage 4. I literally just don't do this boss for whatever reason. If we go here and we just say we want to enter. Okay, so we get this option. It gives you a recommended CP, yada, yada, yada. Your team CP, burning mode. During burning mode, item drop rate increases. However, the entirety of today's clear count will be used. Team CP is higher than recommended CP, enter, blah, blah, blah. So we don't really need to worry about the CP thing here. What we want to know is when we click this on, you'll notice that the item drop rate, instead of being 100% for 3 different clears, you get 400%. So it's very enticing. It makes you want to do it. It's like, hey, come and do this, get an additional 100% item drop rate, and clear the entire boss for the day with only 1 run by consuming, 3 clears worth of stamina. But, and here's the but, the big but, and I'm not talking about, never mind, we're not gonna Nicki Minaj is not making a cameo in today's video. But, anyways, so what happens is if I go in and I do an individual run and I lose, I'm going to be compensated some of that stamina back, and I still have the option to go back in and try again and again and again and again until I beat it. But if you use the burning mode and you fail for whatever reason, disconnection, okay, somebody comes in, your little brother or sister comes and pulls your plug. Oh, rip. Okay, a storm hits, your electricity goes out. Rip. You go in and you just accidentally use the wrong skill combination, or something gets resisted and it screws up your entire farm attempt. You now just, not only did you lose all that stamina that you will not be compensated back for, you now cannot fight that boss for the entirety of the rest of the day. So you will now have to wait till the next daily reset, which for some of you could be up to 24 hours depending on when you did this, when this happened. So now you're a day behind on gear farming. You're also now out of however much stamina you use. And if you're doing stage 10, for example, let's go up here to Trent. Well, I guess I can't show you because I already did all mine for the day. Rip. But I mean, you're using more. You're using 30 plus stamina just down the drain like that if you fail. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're using burning mode. Is your team setup consistent? Are you going to win for sure? Do you have a high success rate? How have your previous individual runs been going? Have you been winning 9 out of 10 fights? These are things that you want to consider. And the biggest thing that I have a little issue with boss battles is a lot of these bosses want you to lock them down. And if you don't lock them down in some way by either sealing their special skills so they just can't completely massacre you, or by completely locking them down with like restrain or paralysis or even stun, they just one-shot you in these higher stages. So there may be also something that you want to consider, maybe doing a little bit less stages than you would do normally going in individually. So if you're going into a stage that's, let's say, stage 8 or 9, the boss can do enough damage if you don't lock it down to one-shot your units. So obviously you don't want that to happen. So you want to leave a little room for miscues or missteps or mistakes. Because there is a chance that you can go in, for example, using Chloe, which is probably one of the better heroes in the entire game for boss fights. She's just good in everything for boss fights because of her locking down, her high damage on her S3, just a very good utility unit for both DPS and lockdown debuffs. So let's say you take your Chloe into Trent stage 10 and he resists the first or second one and he brings out his minions. Now your whole game plan has changed. Now everything is screwed up, but you use burning mode. There's no way you can just click, you know what, this run's screwed, I'm just going to get out of it and go back and try again. Nope, you can't do that. It's over. If you messed up, or if the boss just said nope, and you can't do nothing about it, you just lost that entire boss attempt for the day. It's gone. Stamina, gone. So burning mode, yes, you do gain 100% additional drop rate, which may give you something better. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe just get a bunch of epic gear. You never know. It's still RNG. The drop rates are RNG. Is it worth going into and risking your entire day's worth of farming for that one mistake or that one resist? You know, is it worth it? So you need to, as a player, make sure you understand the high side and the very low side of what you can obtain by doing burning mode. I just want you to be very careful because a lot of people just jumping in, oh, this is awesome, quality of life, I could save so much time doing this. It is, if you succeed. But if you fail, you are getting an epic fail of colossal proportions, which just makes sense with the boss currently on the screen. So just wanted to sit there and make a video talking about that. We're going to dive a little bit into some stats and stuff like that to maybe try and find other ways to use burning mode that maybe you didn't think of. Maybe look into some things that maybe you didn't think to look into when doing this to try and help you succeed with burning mode a lot more than maybe you have. Maybe some of you have been out there and just failing constantly and you're frustrated and you're annoyed and, you know, some things like that. So first, there's a couple things built into the game that really help you establish a good team setup and what you could possibly use for these boss fights for both burning mode or if you're just going in single attempts. Another thing to quickly note, if you're still trying to clear stages for the first time, do not use burning mode. Because you don't even know if you can beat the stage yet because, one, you didn't clear it yet, and two, all the mistakes that could happen, all the resistances, all the other, you know, mishaps that could happen that we've already mentioned in today's video. So those are two major things that you want to consider. Plus, you want to get those free rubies. So if you can beat stage 4, get those 40 rubies, and then beat stage 5, get 50, then beat stage 6, get 60. You could do all that in one day because that'll be your 3 clears. If you use burning mode to clear a stage 4 and you find out, wow, I can beat this boss pretty easy, well, guess what? You can't try stage 5 till tomorrow because you've already wasted all your attempts, and now all that gear is going to be locked into whatever that stage is, so you can't even attempt to get better gear. So never use burning mode when you're trying to clear a stage for the first time, okay? So that's just another thing. But let's get to some of the resources the game offers you to kind of help you better set up your team to hopefully succeed more often than not. Now, no team, I would say, is 100% going to go in every single time because, you know, there's human error. That's a real thing. Especially if you're farming bosses repetitively, you could just make a mistake just out of pure boredom. There's also, of course, disconnections that can happen. There's, of course, the boss could resist it. You could make a mistake when setting up a skill and then forgetting your cooldown, stuff like that, which thankfully we'll be getting that in the next patch that they mentioned with the whole cooldown thing for ultimate skills, which is really, really cool and is going to be very handy. But yeah, so that's some things that could happen. So again, be careful. But if we go here to each individual boss, like Trent, for example, we go to recommended. It's right here on the boss screen. It'll give you some of the recommended Elunes that you could use to fight the boss. Now, some of these may not be ones that you even have, so, you know, take that as well. And I believe they only show... No, they don't just show legendaries. They show other heroes as well. It's going to be like, no, don't be just showing me legendaries. That'd be bad. But, so they have, like, Freya, for example. Elune selection rate, 41%. Reve... you got Balder, Caroline, Kang, Stella, Owen, Mikazuki, Fahrenheit, Arslan. So they're showing you some possible units that you could run for this mode to help you along. Obviously, they want you to bring in Revy because she's an AoE, and Trent does bring out the minions. Now, this is keeping in mind that you're not using the shutdown or the lockdown strat with Chloe, or even Gao, for example. Gao is still a very good unit. I feel like Gao is pretty much used universally in boss fights because Gao can actually seal. As soon as he gets an amulet on the boss, the amulets also help lower the resistance. So he's very good in that regard as well. Same with Mikazuki with her passive on her S1. She can go in there and lower resistances as well. Sadly, the boss can still resist the resist deduction. So you also have to get through that a little bit. But those are some units that can help you with a lot of these bosses because they can help lower that resistance. They can help seal the special skills and the ultimate skills. And then you also have units like Chloe that can go in and just shut down things with her S2. And then if you use a swap turn feature, which is just beautiful, by the way, thank you Gameville for making that a thing, you can also use that to try again and again and again. And then if you add on top of that the Moon Gear, which gives you an additional 25% chance to help either trigger or land the debuff. Either way, it might be the same thing. We're not too sure exactly, but that would help as well when trying to make, you know, the best use of trying to shut these bosses down. Now, some of the bosses that you can shut down now are Trent, Proto T3, and Iscariot. Now, Iscariot, you have to make it through his phase 2, though. He will do an AoE attack when he hits phase 2, I believe when he hits 40% HP. So, if you think, okay, I beat Iscariot one time on stage 10, I'm going to go use burning mode tomorrow. I don't know if I would do that. And the reason why is you might have got lucky the first time, maybe even the first 10 times in a row. But if we go to Iscariot, now this is going to be another good helpful feature in the game. Let's go to the index. If we go to the index, we can actually look at these bosses' statistics, even between their phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3s, and 4s, if you're talking about Imai, or Imai, however you say his name, the Demon Fox. Okay, let's call him Kurama at that point. But, you'll see here, if you go through stage 1, he's not hitting you very hard. I mean, he's got like deals 3,953 magic damage to all enemies. That's not bad. If you got a whole bunch of heroes just over like just 8 or 9k HP and a decent healer, you're gonna be able to get through that boss no problem. Because he's not hitting very hard. He's only stage 1. His attack is only 3594. His defense and magic, his physical and magic defense are pretty low. His HP is only 179,000. You're gonna blitz through that boss pretty easily. I would not pay attention to recommended CP because that is a very I'm trying to think of the word. It's disguising a lot of things. I mean, they're saying, hey, if you got 14,000 CP, you're gonna go in there and beat this boss no problem. That's not the case. You can go in there with 30,000 CP. And if you don't have the right setup, you can still lose. I mean, that's just the way CPs are. They're very alluring, but I would very much just not focus on the CP as being the prime example of if you can win or lose. So I would definitely just consider that as well, among other things that we talked about in today's video. But yeah, so I mean, you can see his skills as well. You can see his passives and stuff like that, what's going on. And then you go to phase 2. And you'll see how it changes. It'll tell you when he goes to phase 2. In this case, he goes to phase 2, I believe, when he hits 40% HP. So there are a few things that you really want to look into when fighting these bosses. Even if it's been a few attempts and you've already won, you still want to look at these things just to understand how the boss operates and works, the mechanics, how you can beat it, and better utilize your team around it. You definitely want to have team synergy. That is a very important thing in overcoming any kind of boss or any kind of hard to beat difficulty in any game. You just want to have that team synergy. You want your team to work like a well-oiled machine and get the job done. So then we move over to stage 2. You see the boss starts increasing his damage. He increases his HP, his attack, both of his defenses. His skills start becoming more and more potent. So you want to keep working your way up, working your way up, working your way up. And then you get up to like a stage 10, for example. Okay, let's say you got very lucky, you used the shutdown method, and somehow you survived his AoE soon as he hit phase 2. And by the way, when you fight bosses that go into phases, they lose all the debuffs that you inflicted. They're gone, they're reset. So that could be something that you want to consider. Maybe if you're running a Kang Rim and you want to use him for his restraint on his S2, you might want to focus on bosses that don't utilize phases like that, because all of that work that you put in, those 3 attacks in a row you did just to get that mark of death, to make that restrain have a higher chance to land, is now gone. It's reset. So now you're back to the drawing board, and now you got to survive a few turns to get King Rim going to be able to do that again. But it might be too late because of how strong this boss is. He's going to be hitting you for 40k plus magic damage to all enemies, and that could possibly just completely one-shot you. Now, of course, you can mitigate some of that damage by tanks like Fahrenheit with that S3, or even the S2 of Wei Wei. You also have, of course, trying to increase your magic and physical defenses and stuff like that. There's ways to slowly mitigate that damage, but nonetheless, the boss is still going to be hitting you so hard that you may not survive the hit. Thus, it's going to completely ruin your farm attempt, and if you're using burning mode, you just lost everything. So you definitely want to consider your chances of success, your probability. You want to see, okay, can I win 85-90% of the time, always on a consistent basis at this stage? And if you can't, bump down a stage, bump down 2 stages, then use your burning mode. If you really are heavy set on that 400% drop rate, and you don't mind getting a little bit less of a tier for a drop for gear possibly, but you're on a limited time and you don't have time to do all those boss fights 3 times each, then you can go ahead and just, maybe consider dropping down a stage, maybe dropping down 2 stages. That way you have an 85, 90, maybe even a 95% chance of winning. That way your gear is still coming in at a steady rate. You're not wasting all your resources from your stamina being gone, and you're still getting, progressing. You're getting gear. You're throwing gear on your characters, making them better. That way you can eventually go back in, do burning mode on the higher stages, like stage 9, stage 10, at a consistent rate. You want to be able to, I would say, I would feel more comfortable being in 85 to 90% range. 95% might be asking a little bit much for like stage 9 and 10s at this given stage in the game. We've only been playing for a couple weeks if you started day 1. But I would definitely say to please pay attention to these numbers, because let's just say for a boss like Iscariot, if you do just shut him down on his phase 1, you just shut him down a whole game, you got him down to 40%, no problem, you're just bombing this dude, he can't do nothing. Boom, he goes phase 2, lights your ass up with an AoE attack and kills everybody because he's doing that much damage and your team is not up to that par yet. I mean, I did say don't pay too much attention to the CP, because you can take a 50-60k CP team in here and beat Iscariot if you get a little bit of luck and you run the right strategy. However, you also need to look at the CP and notice, okay, I'm at 60-70,000 CP. This boss recommended 100k. This dude's got 1,000,000 HP. He's got 37,000 attack. I'm looking at my team, sitting at 60-70k CP, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a big gap. So obviously maybe my team really isn't set up for that, and thus if your shutdown strategy doesn't work, he probably will kill you. So I mean, there's a little bit to look into it there with the CP, but I still would not recommend just looking at the CP as the end all, the be all end all. But it definitely could help a little bit, and just in common sense telling you, okay, my team might be a little bit underpowered, which most of the teams of every player in the game right now should not be fighting stage 10s. We are underpowered. However, with the right strategy, you can overcome the differences in power, as long as you're able to keep the boss on lockdown. But for whatever reason, if that lockdown strat does not work, or if a boss you fight that has a phase 2, phase 3, or 4 gets out of all those debuffs that you've been building up the whole fight, and they hit you one time and you can't survive it, that's GG, game over. And sometimes you might get lucky, sometimes you might not. So I just want to, kind of elaborate a little bit about this and try and get a lot of you out of some of the RNG pitfalls that you can fall into, and try to get more into the consistency of winning. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know we talked about a lot of things. I know there was a lot of information I threw at you. If you have to pause the video at any time to go back and kind of just look over some things I went into, let me know. If this helped any of you out, definitely let me know in the comment section below. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that you can look at the index, you can look at their skills, you can look at the phases. You need to understand your team strategy. You need to understand your team's weaknesses, your strengths, your synergy, how consistent the team is going to be. You need to look at the boss's statistics. You need to know if and when there's a chance that you might fail or get something resisted or mess up. There's still a little room for error that you can still come back and win. If you can't, then it might not be something that you want to do with burning mode. You might want to knock it down a peg or two. Otherwise, go into the boss as individual fights, and if you lose, no harm, no foul. You lose a little bit of stamina, but you can still try again and again and again, and if all else fails, just go down a stage or two, like I said. So, hope you guys all enjoyed. Sorry for the long video, the rambling, but hopefully it was very helpful. I wanted to talk about this. So, anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe on the channel. Don't forget to tick all notifications so you don't miss a video, and don't forget to join us in the Discord in the description below. Hope you guys all enjoyed. As always, until next time, have an awesome day wherever you are. As always, peace.